Happy Normals,
Welcome to Deeply Disturbing Things.
the podcast.
I'm Macy,
I'm Naomi.
And I'm Sarah.
and we're three counselors, two of which are sick right now. That would be me and that one down there. And we're here to I can't mix it up.
I'm not sick.
And we're three anxious counselors who like to talk about deeply disturbing things, and Naomi is healthy.
I am the healthy one.
You're the chosen one.
I think this is my second. This probably isn't true. If we listen to all the recordings over the years now, I'm curious how many times I've been sick on the podcast. It'd be
I know I've been sick before.
Yeah.
Okay, who's first?
You're first.
Okay, this is.
Hurrah.
I am excited, not because this isn't like an exciting topic, but I'm excited because I love learning about new things, and I hadn't heard of this, and I think everybody should know about this.
Can I do a really
this...
quick disclosure? So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to, after our podcast, I guess, was it the one before the last one? I missed the last one, right?
Yes.
The last one that I was on? I can't remember now. It was the last one where we actually we did the Disturbometer. And
it was the one before, I think.
It was the one before. And so my little disclosure, I thought about it after the fact. I just wanted to, when I had said that I was not as disturbed on those two topics, but the interesting level was very high for me. So I'm good with it not being super disturbing all the time. Like if it was just like 9s and 10s all the time, that would be really stressful. So I like a good range just to.
Yeah, I mean, a more accurate description of our podcast would be, mild to moderate to deeply disturbing, depending on the day. That's really long, so we just call it deeply disturbing.
The spectrum of disturbing things.
I like that. Okay, so go for it.
Okay. So I learned about this in a DEI training that I attended last week. And I immediately was like, oh, podcast topic, I'm writing that down because I really wanted to look into it more. I am going to speak to you about cells for a second. For decades, scientists in the early part of the last century had been collecting tissue samples from patients, and they were searching for cells that could live outside the human body because then they can do research on them. But the cells would always die. So they would extract cells, put them in a petri dish or whatever, and they would die. But now we have special kind of cells called HeLa cells, and they don't die. They're considered immortal. They live outside the human body, they replicate, and they have been critical to numerous advances in medicine, including the AIDS cocktail, chemotherapy, and recently the COVID-19 vaccines.
Oh, that's right.
Where do HeLa cells come from, you might ask?
Aliens? Maybe.
In 1951, a young Black mother of 5 named Henrietta Lacks walked into the Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, complaining of severe vaginal bleeding. So despite the oral histories and, stories about doctors who snatched Black people off the streets for research purposes, Henrietta still trusted the doctors and believed that they would do anything they could to help her because she wanted to survive for her husband and her 5 kids. It was one of the few hospitals that treated African-American individuals at the time. So when she was examined, the gynecologist discovered a large malignant tumor on her cervix. So she was diagnosed with cervical cancer and began the treatment for that. So there were cells that were removed from Henrietta and sent over to their research center. And the researcher, George Otto Gey, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, Gay maybe. He was amazed to discover that these cells were unlike anything Henrietta Lacks's cells doubled every 20 to 24 hours and were living outside the human body. So not only could they reproduce, but they were living. They were considered immortal, and these cells gave birth to the biomedical industry that we have today. So the word Gila comes from the first two letters of Henrietta and the first two letters of Lacks, so Hela. So Gila cells are named after Henrietta Lacks, where they came from.
So wait, it's just like she originated them like a superhero, or we all have them and it was discovered through her?
No.
What?
Henrietta Lacks had
a
immortal
superpower.
cells. Yes.
And those were her just the cells, just not, was it part of the cancer, or was it part of the tumor?
Just her human cells. Yeah.
Just herself. She was a superhero. Why didn't I never heard of this?
I know, that's why I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to dive in, because the training I went to, they just mentioned it was like one sentence long. And I was like, wait, I'm like writing it down. So sadly, Henrietta did die from cancer not too long after she started treatment. When she had passed and her body was in the Johns Hopkins autopsy facility, these researchers took further samples. So one of the earliest developments was these Gila cells developed the polio vaccine in 1954.
Did she give consent to be experimented on after her death?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That is what I was about to say next. Good question. Henrietta Lacks had no idea that her cells were taken from her. Her family had no idea.
What?
So they were taken without her consent. And multi-million-dollar industries have profited, obviously. I mean, think about how much money is in the biomedical research industry, developing vaccines and things. Wow. So that is the brief story behind what Gila cells come from. So I wanted to spend some time and share about the person that these cells came from, because I feel like that's pretty dehumanizing to just take someone's cells without their consent and replicate them. So part of her, like that's considered her, it's considered her human body, are living all over in all these labs all over the place today.
Wow.
Because they continue to reproduce and be used for research today.
Wow.
So let's get to know Henrietta as a person. She was born in 1920 in Roanoke, Virginia. She was remembered as always wearing red nail polish, having a neatly pleated skirt. When she was 4, her mother died giving birth to her 10th child and wasn't able to care for the kids alone. So the father moved the family up to Clover, Virginia, and the kids were kind of distributed out among the relatives to be raised up. So Henrietta ended up with her maternal grandfather in a 2-story log cabin that was once the slave quarters on the plantation that had been owned by Henrietta's white great-grandfather and great-uncle. And she shared a room in this cabin with her first cousin and her future husband, David Lacks. So like most other family members there in Clover, Henrietta worked as a tobacco farmer from a very young age, feeding the animals, tending the garden, working in the fields, and went to the designated black school 2 miles away from the cabin. But when she was in 6th grade, she had to drop out of school to help support the family. When she was 14, she gave birth to her first kiddo, Lawrence. And then in 1939, her daughter, Elsie Lacks, was born. And Elsie may have had epilepsy and cerebral palsy, was described as the family as different, so had some disabilities. So in 41, Henrietta got married to David Lacks, and their cousin convinced him to leave the tobacco farm and moved up to Baltimore County in Maryland so that they could work so the husband, David, could work in the steel plant there. An opportunity to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
So when they lived there, Henrietta and David had 3 more kids. And Henrietta gave birth to her last child at the Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore in 1950. And this was 4.5 months before she was diagnosed with cervical cancer. Around that same time, Elsie was placed in a hospital that had a very terrible name, but was later renamed the Crownsville Hospital Center. And she died there when she was 15 years old. And they think that she may have been subjected to a procedure that they did then where they drill a hole into the patient's head to drain fluid from the brain, and then they pump in like oxygen or helium so that it's easier to see the patient's brain in x-rays. So that may have been detrimental and contributed to her early death.
Oh. Early medicine is so scary.
I think now medicine is still scary.
That's fair.
That's why I didn't go get x-rays.
Yeah, I mean, we may be laughing about x-rays in 200 years, like, what were we thinking?
Yeah.
Gosh, didn't they know that is what killed the bees?
Exactly.
We didn't know.
Yeah.
Didn't know.
We're so dumb.
So after Henrietta had her last child, she got that severe bleeding, severe hemorrhaging. So she went back to Johns Hopkins, and that was when they took a biopsy of the mass and found out that it was malignant and she did have cervical cancer. So she was treated. And it was during one of these treatments that the samples were taken from her without her permission or knowledge and given to the lab for research. So she died in 1951. She was only 31 years old. And she was buried in an unmarked grave in the family cemetery in Virginia. It said that her exact burial location is unknown, but the family believes it's really close to where her mother's gravesite is. And so the mother's gravesite was the only one in the family that had actually a tombstone to mark it for a long time. And then in 2010, a faculty member of the Morehouse School for Medicine donated a headstone. And then her family, that inspired them to raise money for a headstone for Elsie Lacks as well. So I thought that was sweet. Mm-hmm. And they were both dedicated on the same day. And so the headstone of Henrietta Lacks has an epitaph written by her grandchildren that reads, "In loving memory of a phenomenal woman, wife and mother who touched the lives of many, here lies Henrietta Lacks, Gila. Her immortal cells will continue to help mankind forever." Mm-hmm. So these HeLa cells were in really high demand after their discovery. And so they started mass producing her cells. And they were mailed out to scientists all around the world for research. HeLa cells were the first human cells that were successfully cloned and have been used to do all sorts of research to test human sensitivity to products like tape, glue, cosmetics. There are almost 11,000 patents involving HeLa cells. That is a lot of money and a lot of duplication of a human being's.
Did her family ever try to get compensation once they figured this out, or did you hear anything about that?
To my knowledge, they have not been compensated financially. I'll describe some of their efforts though. So in the early 1970s, so this is like, 20 years this has been going on. Some of these cell cultures from other cells in the research lab got contaminated by HeLa cells. And so they needed to sort it out. And the researchers contacted some of Henrietta Lacks' family because they were asking for blood samples, because they were trying to differentiate the HeLa cell lines from the other cell lines. So the family members obviously very confused. Why are people contacting us wanting our blood samples? They were getting all these phone calls. And then in 1975, they just learned by chance that the material originating from Henrietta was continuing to be used for medical research. They had never really discussed Henrietta's illness and death among themselves, but now they're like starting to ask questions. What is going on? Mm-hmm. So it's really important to reiterate that neither Henrietta Lacks or her family gave doctors permission to harvest her cells. They definitely didn't give permission to clone them and do all this research and send them all around the world. Mm-hmm. At that time, they didn't need permission to do that. So we always have to keep in mind, like, the times, like judging the past based on today's understanding of things. Mm-hmm. In the 1980s, family medical records were actually published without the family consent. Oh. And a similar court case that occurred in California in 1990 was ruled against them and said that a person's discarded tissues and cells were actually not their property and could be commercialized.
Interesting. That's really interesting for how far they could take that.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever had something removed, I would say ask for it, because who knows what's going to happen, like a gallbladder or something. I would take mine home with me.
Tonsils,
yeah, those are mine. My tonsils.
They were yours. They're mine now.
I mean, I'm super mad I didn't take my placenta. I wish I would have. If I could turn back time. I don't know that I would eat it or anything, but
bury it maybe.
That may have been sold and used to make shampoo or something.
Right. I mean, you may it will be a nail cell one day, and you'll be like, wow, I really should have followed up on that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I would say is keep your parts. So in March of 2013, researchers published the DNA sequence of the genome of a strain of HeLa cells. And the Lacks family discovered this when a lady who was writing a book about Henrietta informed them. So the Lacks family was not cool with their genetic information being published publicly. A grandchild of Henrietta said to the New York Times, "The biggest concern was privacy. What information was actually going to be out there about our grandmother? And what information can they obtain from her sequencing that will tell them about her children and grandchildren and going down the line?" So very valid concerns.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also just wondering about, if they were to ask permission to take samples from the children or from the grandchildren, it's like maybe they could find other things from this, family line.
Well, and it's almost like they're too saying, like, I mean, and they could ask for compensation, like, and good for that. Like, you should.
Yeah, so they have tried to get compensation. I wasn't able to find any evidence that they were successful in getting financial compensation. They have been given other things. It kind of feels like let's throw them a bone in a way. So
a COVID vaccine?
Yeah.
In 2013, the National Institute of Health gave the family some control over access to the cell's DNA sequences and promised that they would be acknowledged in scientific papers. 2 family members were asked to join a committee that would regulate access to the sequence data. So again, it's something, it's some sense of control. It's not financial compensation.
Yeah, no, and that's like researchers like giving the nod, not the company selling it. Like they don't care. They're just making money.
Big money. These companies are big money.
I know, and they're the ones not doing anything.
So I learned there's something called the Common Rule, and it was created in 1981 to give like umbrella ethics about biomedical and behavioral research involving human subjects. It's supposed to be the baseline standard of ethics by any government-funded research in the US. And so right now, the National Institute of Health has proposed revisions to the Common Rule that would require consent to be obtained from anyone from whom biological specimens are taken before the samples are used in research, even if the specimens are de-identified from the person. So right now, the big excuse is, well, that they're not traceable to a person. Like, yes, we use stuff in people, but it's not identifiable.
Mm.
So they want to propose to change that the consent would still be needed. Because it's crazy. Our stuff may have been researched on, we don't know. I mean,
Right.
They still can take stuff from people.
how often have you given a sample of something?
All the time.
All the time. A pap smear, that's a sample.
A pee sample.
A pee sample, a blood, a tooth. They're in there, looking at your teeth, scraping.
Well, and this makes me think I don't remember but we talked a while ago about like AI and like voice recognition and like what are the ethics around like what if someone like copied your voice and did things with it, like there's nothing inherently illegal about that.
Yeah.
Like, do you own that?
Well, apparently you don't even own your body.
Physical. Yeah, it's interesting.
So there has been fairly recent, unfortunately, acknowledgement of wrongdoing. It should have happened a long time ago. I looked up the Johns Hopkins Hospital, and they have a couple pages on there about Henrietta. So they say Johns Hopkins applauds and regularly participates in efforts to raise awareness of the life and story of Henrietta Lacks. Having reviewed our interactions with Henrietta Lacks and with the family over the more than 50 years, we found that Johns Hopkins could have, should have done more to inform and work with members of Henrietta Lacks' family out of respect for them, their privacy, and their personal interests. Though the collection and use of Henrietta Lacks' cells in research was an acceptable and legal practice in the 50s, such a practice would not happen today without the patient's consent. They've named a building after Henrietta, which is nice.
But do they own the building? That's so annoying.
No.
That's so obnoxious. Like, great, dude, because that just makes them look good. Like, look at how nice we are. Look at us dismissing our guilt away. Like, where are you actually like giving them what they deserve out of that, or even communicating with them that they deserve any of it?
Yeah.
Like, get out of here with your named your building.
Here's your participation prize.
Yeah.
Oh, the building that you make other money off of other people from inside? Great, thanks for that.
Yeah. And I don't know if they really needed to put that sentence about that it was acceptable back then. It kind of, to me, kind of detracts from the apology or the acknowledgement.
It's minimizing.
It's like putting a big butt in it. It's like, no.
But it was fine back then. We didn't do anything wrong, is what they're saying. I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
Well, it was wrong then, and it's wrong now. You can just say that.
Yeah. So
like moving forward, here's a percentage of profits to the family. That would be,
Yeah, as they continue to save lives around the world.
yeah. Moving forward, you guys are gonna get some money.
I didn't realize John Hopkins had such a dark history. I mean, they're well known and I feel like respected, but now that I know all this, it's like I look at them a little bit differently.
Mhm.
So it's estimated that HeLa cells have saved over 10 million lives. The HeLa cells are the only cells which have continued to live outside the human body and replicate. It's just
one person. That's
incredible.
insane. Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering. Have they even like asked permission and to test the kids or the grandkids? Like, I mean, I guess you don't really need anybody else's cells if these can just keep.
But it would be interesting to see if it's something genetic that is passed on or not. Yeah, I couldn't find anything about that.
Out of spite, I'd be like, no, all you have to do, just give us the rights to it. I want to help promote this. And then they would do it. And I'd say, great, now you can't have any of it. I'm spiteful and bitter and you deserve this. And now none of you are getting this.
Yeah. So it's these types of things in the history of the relationship between Black people and the medical industry, behavioral health industry, science industry that has built this deep-seated mistrust that continues to contribute to health disparities today. So this is justified mistrust based on real events that have happened.
And there's so many of those.
Yeah, and I want to say in our field, Black individuals are overdiagnosed, misdiagnosed, overrepresented in diagnoses like paranoia, and I feel like we really have to look at, are the things that they're being paranoid real, like we have to step back and look and see, yeah, there's a real actual justified history of stuff. I mean, justified reason for being paranoid, because
cultural
look at what's been done, research without consent, the Tuskegee syphilis experiments. I mean, it goes on and on.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I was really happy to be able to look into this and, shine a light on it. And I can't show the picture of her. I was going to end with a picture of her. If you want to know more, there's a movie called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. It's on HBO, and it's based on the book of the same name.
Okay.
I watched it. I'm glad that, it was made. I didn't think it was a great movie. It stars Oprah. It's her Harpo production company, but I just couldn't unsee Oprah in this. I'm like, oh, look at
take the stage.
Look at Oprah pretending she needs to walk with a cane. Look at Oprah doing this or that. So that I couldn't unsee the Oprah. I'm very glad we have an Oprah that has the funds to like shine lights on these stories and create films and all of it.
She produced and starred and directed all of it.
Well, I don't know if she directed, but she definitely stars, and her production company definitely created the film.
Oh wait, so she's in it.
She plays the daughter of Henrietta Lacks.
Okay. There's certain actors that have just, like either celebrities or actors that I just don't even see them as that character. It's just like you said, that's just Oprah.
It's just, yeah, it was just Oprah, the whole thing.
Like,
oh, look at Oprah pretending. Yeah, so it was hard for me to get into it. I love me some Oprah, don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
it wasn't a great film for me. So that's the story of the immortal cells of Henrietta Lacks.
Awesome. Learn something new every day.
I know. That's what I love about this podcast.
Yeah.
Gives me it forces me to look into stuff that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's great because it's not just us teaching other people. We learn things.
I learn things. I love learning.
Me too.
All right. My turn. Here we go.
I'm ready for it.
I'm
here
gonna
for it.
I'm gonna talk about the Subway guy.
I've
Oh
never heard of
yeah.
the Subway
Is his
guy.
name Jared? Is it Jared?
Jared.
Oh, that Subway guy. I'm thinking like
Subway guy.
transportation.
Not, I mean, maybe food to mouth, but that's or well, okay, well,
Yes, let's talk about this. This
fine,
needs to be talked about.
this does need to be talked about because this is one of those things that like I remember him in the commercials for Subway growing up, holding up the big pair of pants, right? I remember that, and I remember like something happened where he got in trouble.
That's me too. That's it. I don't remember. I forgot what he did.
And then, oh my goodness, the uncovering. So, Jared Scott Fogle. That's his full name, just so we know that. Okay, so it was from 2000 to 2015 that he was in Subway's campaign commercials. So he went to Indiana University. He lost 245 pounds between 1998 and 1999, having frequently going to Subway as part of his diet plan. So they ended up kind of picking him up as a advertising ploy, and he became very popular.
Which sandwich did he eat?
I don't know that. Good question, but I'm going to tell you which sandwich not to eat in a minute.
Okay.
So
the meatball sub?
In a minute. I mean, no.
I think I know which one you're going to say.
Okay. So what was I saying? Okay, he starred in like 300 commercials during 15 years with Subway, along with tons of other media appearances. He kind of became a big deal. Okay, so that being said, I'm just going to give a little foreshadowing. He was incarcerated December of 2015 at the Federal Correctional Institute in Inglewood. Okay, so let's talk.
I was born.
Really?
Yeah.
At the institution?
I wasn't born in the prison.
I was gonna say, huh?
That explains
why. Things are coming together.
Just Inglewood.
Just
at a hospital. Yeah.
Great. So, okay, so he was featured in Men's Health magazine, in an article that said "Stupid diets ... that work." So that was, one of the first ones. He weighed 425 pounds. That was when he weighed the most, through lack of exercise, eating junk food, per his reports. He changed his eating habits. He went from 10,000 calories a day to, I found it, 1 small turkey sub and 1 large veggie sub, along with some baked potato chips and a diet soda, 2,000 calories. That's still a lot of food. I mean,
it seems like a lot of empty calories too, all that bread.
Right. So they then kind of launched off of that advertising. So he said the Subway diet combined with a lot of walking, that worked for him. They said, not saying this works for everybody, but maybe you should try it because it worked for Jared.
I bet a lot of people, weight loss is huge. I bet a lot of people are like, all right, I'm gonna eat my Subway every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like looking for something.
Yeah.
So they said it was like pretty effective. Test ads went really well. He made a ton of appearances in the US and was like in tons of fitness and healthy eating magazines, websites. 2002, Fogle was the subject of the episode South Park, titled Jared Has AIDS. Fogle stated that while the episode had tasteless humor, the fact that an entire episode was devoted to him was pretty flattering. So, he's getting a lot of attention.
Now I need to watch that episode. I need to.
Yeah. He said, you've made it when shows like South Park start parodying you. In 2017, there's a video game that was called South Park: The Fractured But Whole video game that featured him in it as well.
The Fractured Butthole?
Hole or butthole?
What do you say?
It's written out butthole.
Okay, I think it's punny.
I think it's funny too. Okay, so in February 2008, Subway campaign called Tour de Pants celebrated Fogle's maintaining his weight loss for a decade. As part of the campaign, he made an announcement that he would retire his pair of 62-inch pants to a museum and end the advertising tour. In 2008, his presence in Subway advertisement decreased because the company placed a new emphasis on the $5 footlong promotion. You've all heard that?
Yeah. And
Which,
people measured it and it wasn't quite a foot long.
No, but it doesn't have to be because it's a branded name. It's not an actual form of measurement. So there you go.
That's quite a kerfluffle.
It is. Okay, so he was on WWE in 2009, 2011, 2013. He just kind of kept expanding. He made appearances in Sharknado film, Sharknado 2, which I have never, and Sharknado 3. I've never seen any of the Sharknados.
Oh, I've seen all of them.
I think he's in there, I guess.
They're fantastically terrible.
Apparently it says that this was cut from the Sci-Fi Channel broadcast a week before the premiere, when his house was searched by the FBI. There was also the Jared Foundation, nonprofit organization focused on raising awareness about childhood obesity through educational programs and tools, parents, schools, community organizations.
That's good.
Right. In 2015, Russell Taylor, the director, was arrested for charges of child exploitation, possession of child pornography, and voyeurism.
Bad Jared.
So Fogle severed all ties with him immediately. So this is Russell Taylor. Russell Taylor had those things happen to him.
What did he do?
Russell Taylor was the director of the foundation.
Oh,
and
gosh.
he had those things found about him. So Jared cut all ties immediately after. Taylor apparently attempted suicide in 2015 at the jail and was placed on life support. Taylor pled guilty to the charges in 2015, and on December 10th, 2015, he was sentenced to 27 years in a federal prison. Okay. They said that the Jared Foundation had not issued any grants nor had given any funds for its stated purpose. The article further noted, on average, the foundation spent $73,000 a year, with the majority of that figure paying the salary of the executive director. More than 1/4 of the funds were unaccounted for in the records. And the Secretary of State of Indiana dissolved the organization in 2012 because it did not pay the required $5 annual reporting fee. It's just
what kind of foundation is this?
Not a good one. Not one that
actually, very bad foundation.
This is like the epitome of when you think of like, ooh, someone's putting up like a sketchy nonprofit that has like no real basis and they're just getting money and paying the person at the top.
Sounds exactly like that.
Did they even do anything that they said they were gonna do? Like, did they even help anybody? Any awareness? Any kids suffering?
Like, what was the foundation supposed to do? What was their
here, I'll read the start of it
again.
It said, focused on raising awareness about childhood obesity through educational programs and tools provided to parents, schools, and community organizations.
Which could be literally anything. It could be like a one-page flyer that you photocopy and
wrote your
put
name
on people's windshields.
He probably just took a picture of his pants and sent it around.
And just because he forgot to pay the $5 fee, they got shut down.
Right, like that was the thing.
Did the foundation have a lot of money? Like, did people donate to it?
It was enough to pay the director $73,000 a year.
I was gonna ask, did it say how much Jared made over the course of
Subway? I think, with Subway, I'm not sure.
Well, just with Subway and then all the things that came after.
I don't know. I'm sure I could find it if I look for that specifically, but yeah, not in my bundle. So the president of the nonprofit charity watchdog group Charity Watch was quoted saying, if Jared were really interested in helping children through his foundation, he could have gotten more money. most celebrities, with charities, they use image enhancements. And I mean, like, he could have actually put himself in it more to make more money if he actually even cared about that money going somewhere. It was just open and they took what came and that was it.
Jared Fogle was estimated to be worth approximately $15 million in 2015.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's a lot.
Now, here, let's go to 2007. Fogle came to the attention of the state and federal law enforcement agencies after a Florida journalist and radio host, Rochelle Herman Wohlrund, told the police department that he made lewd comments to her about middle school age girls. She had met him at a local middle school for a health event as he was there for a speaking tour. She made recordings of his comments and saved text messages between them and then went to the FBI, where agents asked her to record her conversations with him. So she writes, there's a mole. Then, so she goes in and befriends him over a period of 4 years, recording her conversation.
Oh my God, trust no one.
Trust no one. She recorded him making several remarks about having sex with underage girls and asking her to install a webcam in her children's room so he could watch them. Ultimately, the FBI could not pursue a case because the recordings, because they needed more substantial evidence, I guess.
More evidence than a voice recording.
Jared, that's so creepy.
So during the investigation into Russell Taylor's the director's child pornography operations, authorities discovered that Taylor had traded sexually explicit photos and videos of children, some as young as 6.
No.
Jared. Taylor was sentenced to 27 years. He was later named an unindicted co-conspirator to the FBI's case. So what we found in Russell Taylor's home on his computer led us to Jared, is what they said. So, 2015, FBI and Indiana State Police raided his home in Indiana, and his residents arrested him on distribution and receipt of child pornography charges. Computers, all electronics were removed from his home. The same day, a spokesperson for Subway announced that the company and Jared had mutually agreed to suspend their business relationship. Subsequently, they moved him from the website. Following Jared's arrest, the FBI also subpoenaed a series of text messages in 2008 between him and a franchisee, Cindy Mills, who he's having sexual relationships with. In those messages, he talked about sexually abusing children, ranging from the age of 9 to 16.
No, Jared.
He told her to sell herself for sex on Craigslist and asked her to arrange for him to have sex with her 16-year-old cousin. Her lawyer said that she had alerted Subway's corporate management of the text messages, but that they didn't respond, and they said that they didn't have to because he wasn't a Subway employee, that there was no violation, and that they didn't have records of those allegations.
Yeah, but they should, being a responsible company, make some kind of statement. You would think, well, but we are not down with child molesting.
But their next statement was, we have no record of that. I just like how the first statement is, well, he's not an employee, so there's no violation, and we don't have record of that. Your order of operations is wrong there.
Get your priorities straight, Subway.
Right. Okay, so 2015, prosecutors announced that they reached a deal with him that he would plead guilty to 2 counts, 1 of distribution and a receipt of child pornography, and 1 of traveling to engage in an illicit sexual conduct with a minor, specifically from Indiana to New York, where he was charged with paying to engage in sexual acts with a 17-year-old girl. Okay, so prosecutors allege that he was offered adult prostitutes a finder's fee to find him younger sex partners.
That were minors?
Yeah. Yep. According to documents that were released, he also agreed to pay a total of $1.4 million in restitution, $100,000 to each victim. He faced up to 50 years in prison. And if he had gone and had he gone to trial, they would seek no more than 12 and a half years. So in return, he agreed to a minimum sentence of 5 years. Soon after the plea deal was announced, Subway announced via Twitter that it had completely got rid of all ties and that he'd be restricted to supervised contact or communication with minors upon approval of probation officer. Okay, so his own children would be allowed only with the approval of the mother being there. Okay, so then as he formally pled guilty in 2015 to the judge, Tanya Walton, in a statement, he apologized for his crimes, saying he wanted a chance to become, quote, a good, honest person and, quote, redeem his life after being ensnared in a life of, quote, deception, lies, and complete self-centeredness.
He wasn't snared, but who set the trap?
Right. So a forensic psychiatrist who testified for the defense team said he suffered from compulsive eating disorders for several years before losing the weight and replaced food with a sense of hypersexuality, which included mild or weak pedophilia. Okay.
Mild or weak
pedophilia? I know. What? That diagnosis was not expected by experts in the psychiatry field and was criticized by Pratt on social media. So Liberty Behavioral Health Corp psychologist Adam Deming suggested that Bradford had meant to say that his primary sexual attraction was to early teenagers, but that he had a lesser attraction to younger children.
It's like mild, moderate to severe.
Oh, mild, moderate to severe.
It seems like it's just all severe. Like, let's just
it's all severe. Yeah.
Because pedophilia is all prepubescent kids. Like, it's all severe.
That's severe.
Get out of there, Jared.
There's no mild.
Let's not downplay it.
Dirty, nasty Nassau, remember? Okay, so Pratt sentenced Fogle to 15 years and 8 months in prison, over three years more than what prosecutors had sought out and 3 times what he had requested. Pratt stated that, quote, the level of perversion and lawlessness exhibited is extreme. Fogle must serve a minimum of 13 years before becoming eligible for time off for good behavior. After serving his sentence, he'll be on supervised release for the rest of his life. Pratt also fined him $175,000 and ordered him to forfeit $50,000 in assets, in addition to the $1.4 million in restitution.
So when was that? Is he still in prison?
Well, that was 2015. 13 years. So in 2015, in December, his lawyer filed a notice of appeal. He is able to appeal the sentence since it's longer than the maximum sentence. So there's some little loophole there. The appeal was brief, but Fogle asked for an extension because after his lawyer was diagnosed with cancer, it was granted, the appeal was filed, and the office responded, the attorney's office responded by opposing any sentence reduction. They said the text messages to a woman they found that year was, quote, pay you big for a 14 or 15-year-old, end quote, and that underage girls are, quote, what I crave, end quote. In these text messages, he also expressed sexual interest in young boys. So they upheld his previous sentence. He didn't get that appeal. Good, right? So he is in a federal correction institute. It has a program specific for sex offenders. Judge Pratt agreed to the recommendation for that, but she had no authority to determine where he would serve his sentence. So he was there on a temporary basis. He ended up being transferred to FCI Inglewood. In 2016, he was assaulted by another inmate. The attack left him with a bleeding nose, swollen face, scratches on his neck. He was then transferred again to Oklahoma after being transferred from then to Texas. So he's been moved around a lot.
I'm wondering if it's because he's targeted, because
I'm sure he is.
You hear that pedophiles anyway, or child murderers are often killed in prison, you know.
Right. And he's so
it has its own justice system. I'm wondering if that, but and also his like fame makes him an extra target, and that's why he's moved around so much.
I mean,
we need to ask your dad if he saw that at the prison he worked at.
Yeah. I'm sure he would say yes. So he tried in 2017 to overturn his conviction, saying that they didn't have jurisdiction to convict him. That got overturned. She dismissed another motion where he filed on behalf, where a fellow inmate filed on his behalf, saying the court did not have jurisdiction. Again, trying to say he was a sovereign citizen somehow, then overturn that. So in 2021, in November, he spoke out from prison for the first time, writing a letter in the New York Post that he, quote, royally screwed up, and that he runs 4 to 5 miles per day and works out regularly while behind bars, claiming to weigh 180 pounds.
Does he eat any Subway?
Probably not. He's probably banned from eating Subway, I'm sure.
I'm kind of confused by that statement. Like, why is he checking in on his health and fitness?
Yeah, that's like
he's trying to keep his. Yeah, it's like he's still keeping his advertising.
Nobody cares what your weight is anymore, Jared.
Yeah, that's like really weird.
Isn't it weird?
Why don't you speak to the actual important crime topic?
Yeah, like
not your hot prison bod.
Men's Health magazine, like we care. Yeah.
That shows me that he's not ready.
Yep.
No. And that was, what did I say, 2021? Yeah, 2021. So potentially face charges related to victims 13, 14. So there was statutory rape charges, trafficking persons for sexual reasons charges. There was some issues with getting people to give testimony. So there was potentially other charges that could have been given to that just didn't happen. So that whole deal aside, I just want to talk really quickly about the other startling thing that I found out. So over the last 2 years, Subway has been looking into the possible sale of the company for $10 billion over a second major scandal and lawsuit. Do you know what it is?
Is it the tuna sandwiches not being tuna?
It is the tuna sandwiches. So it's an ongoing class action suit where they have DNA tested repeatedly, shows that Subway tuna subs have no tuna in them.
Like, what the fuck is it then? What is that?
Like, legitimately no tuna is in
I want to know what it is.
All I ate. I would eat the tuna sandwich and I would do pepperoncinis and avocado.
I was just about to say, thank God I never had a tuna sandwich from Subway.
I never ate anything else from there. That would be the only thing I'd get.
What were you eating?
It's human.
I have no idea. It's human. It's Jared's. That's where all of his extra fat went.
Oh God. Oh God.
Oh, that's mean. That's okay. He deserves a little bit.
I used to like their turkey subs back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's only that one, I guess. Yeah, so
Sarah, do you have a favorite Subway?
Actually, I'll just get like a veggie. Just all the veggies. And the avocado.
Healthy.
And the meatball sub is pretty good.
Yep. And then I just had again, I can't really show you guys, but I just had a picture of him standing in his old pants.
I don't want to look at his face, really.
No, he says
or his pants. I don't want to look at his pants.
Yeah, it's gross.
I'm looking up what was in the tuna.
Yeah, I want to know what Macy was eating.
What
was probably either like some fake food or some like random white fish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like an imitation. Like some.
But how do they make it taste tuna-y? Is there like a tuna flavor? Like a tuna essence?
I thought tuna was like fairly cheap. out of a can anyways. I don't know why they had to like one up the cheapness.
Because it's a mixture of various concoctions.
Oh,
The word concoction.
you're eating a mixture of various concoctions.
That doesn't
Tracy.
describe.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Concoctions.
You mean it doesn't say at all?
No.
Was there anything like harmful in there or weird, like goo or sawdust?
I did just see that. So Ireland's Supreme Court in 2020 ruled that Subway sandwiches are too sugary to be classed as bread and therefore is not liable for a tax exemption. Oh. And that was their scrutiny came after years of fighting off its 2014 yoga mat bread scandal, which showed Subway had been using chemicals found in rubber and plastic in its bread. And they called it the yoga mat controversy.
Because their bread was basically made out of the same ingredients as yoga mats.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go home and make a wrap out of my yoga mat.
Yeah, various concoctions not constitute tuna, yet blended together by Subway.
But what are the various concoctions? People want to know.
It's like KFC. They don't give.
Oh, it says allegedly contains pork, chicken, so it's kind of like a hot dog situation.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
Allegedly pork, chicken, and possibly no traces of tuna DNA.
That's horrifying. Like I ate that when I was a vegetarian way.
Oh my God, you should sue them. You thought you were being pescatarian. You were eating beef, pork, chicken.
Ew.
I'm pescatarian now.
Gross.
I used to eat the meatball sandwiches, but see, I would order a tuna. I would have, except for now, I will never order tuna from there. Did they have to fix it though? Like, do they now serve actually full tuna?
It's an ongoing. It said ongoing. There's another like possible.
You know, it was the worst bits of chicken and pork too.
There's another lawsuit that says that they had focused on recruiting mainly. Let me see where this is at in the District of California. So mainly trying to recruit Asian immigrants who believe they were about to experience the American dream by owning a franchise. So like targeting, and
that
not
seems super fucking racist and awful.
Right. So they've had a big dip in the number of franchises. They have lost a lot of money because a lot of this just continues. So
they could turn it around if they got better bread and had healthier ingredients and didn't lie to people.
Right, because the brand name is like it's well known everywhere. Subway, like
yeah. I mean, I don't eat there anymore just because I'm a lot more healthier now. But if they got better bread, quality ingredients, they could turn it around. I would eat there if I was on a road trip and there's nothing else.
Do you guys like Jimmy John's?
I actually like Jimmy John's. I do.
Good.
I haven't had it.
I've eaten tuna from there, so I hope it's really tuna.
I know, and I doubt everything. I'm a little horrified. I didn't know the other part of that, and I'm really grossed out because it's
all
so
tuna
soft.
is chicken and pork.
It like must mush it. I can't even think
mushy hot dog.
How did they make it taste like fish though?
Put some
it
mayo
doesn't taste
there.
like fish. I've had it. It doesn't taste like fish. It's all coated in mayo.
It just tastes like mayo.
Right, because I would never put, because they'd say, you want mayo? I'm like, no, it's like has mayo. I want avocado. It's like avocado pepperoni for a little like crunch factor. But yeah, it just tasted like mayo anyways.
Are you traumatized right now, Macy?
I'm a little triggered. Well, that's it. I hope you're disturbed. Let's do our disturbometer.
Okay, so my topic, the immortal cells
10
of Henrietta Lacks. 10. Okay,
I'm a 10. I don't.
Sarah.
I'll go like maybe a 6 on that one.
Okay, 6 for Sarah. I think I'm halfway into. I'm like a 8, a solid 8.
I'm like there's superheroes out there and we're not talking about it.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like a whole emotional roller coaster for me. I'm like, wow, that's super fucking cool and amazing. But like serious case of social injustice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. Subway guy.
I'm gonna give Jared a 0 just because I don't care about him at all. Obviously, he did horrible things, but he's a 0 to me. The tuna sandwich thing right now, I'm literally trying not to gag, so I'm gonna do like 9.5.
9.5.
I try not to think about this the rest of my evening.
Okay, Macy, you got me at a 10 on just the subject of child pornography. That's just one of my most disturbing topic. Like anything to do with that super disturbs me, like to the top. And the tuna is a 10. So 10 all across the boards on that one.
I think I'm a 9 across the board on that one. I'm just glad I never ate their tuna sandwich because I probably would have to go wash my mouth out with bleach right now.
She's gonna be brushing her teeth extra tonight.
Yeah. I mean, that's really fucking gross.
Until next time.
Wait, if you didn't listen to our last podcast, Macy talked about sleep deprivation. I've talked about the unsolved murder of Ruth Waymeyer, which is a local case. And if you would like to watch us on video doing this, that's available exclusively to our patrons on Patreon, along with other really cool exclusive content. It's only $1.
We have faces and places. Until next time.
Keep your body parts.
Never eat tuna from Subway ever again.
And trust no one again. Bye.